Yeah, I definitely divide my life between pre-protease and post-protease inhibitor in terms of my own experience with the epidemic and with AIDS. I was 23 when I was infected, and I was in South Bend, Indiana. And at that point, HIV was in New York and in California, and I never thought at all I was at risk in the middle of the country. When I found out that I was HIV positive in '89, by that point, there was a circle of 10 friends of mine, and by '89, we were down to about 5 of us, and now, 26 years later, we're down to 1, myself. I'm the only one that made it to 96, that made it to the protease inhibitor period of time. I lost my best friend in '92, et cetera. I mean, the whole package. My involvement in AIDS activism began right before I tested positive, but by that time, by 1989, I was so fully involved in the gay community and the HIV community that it was indistinguishable. The protease inhibitors really changed my life because for the first time we had medication that promised me that I might live. I took AZT in '89 and '90 when it first came out, and all my friends that took AZT monotherapy died. Then I did combination therapy in the early '90s, and all my friends that did combination therapy died, and yet somehow or other here I was, this 27, 29, 30-year-old still surviving in the midst of this just chaos and death all around me. It's hard to explain to people what it was like to grow up, if you will, in the community at that time. I moved here green, not out of the closet, just coming out of the closet, right in the middle of the epidemic, and everyone I knew was dying or sick or had a partner who was dying or sick. That was an everyday occurrence for me. So by the time you get me to 1996 and say, Mike, there's hope, there's actually something that might save you, it was very bittersweet. And it actually my meds didn't start working until 2006, so I had to wait another 10 years before we actually found treatment that worked for me. A very nervous 10 years of my life. The leather community's response to the epidemic for me is, I think, one of the greatest stories of a community response ever to anything that's ever threatened their health and well-being. My first involvement with the leather community was in 1988. I was an outreach coordinator for a drug and alcohol treatment program, and they had me come down to Door Alley and do a table to advertise drug treatment programs for gay men at Door Alley. I had no idea what I was walking into, no idea what Door Alley was about, didn't know about the alleys, didn't really know about South of Market much, except that it was the leather community, that sort of scary Tom of Finland male community. And here I was, this tiny little kid from the Midwest. But what did impress me about Door Alley, and from that point forward, from 1988 forward, was I got to see firsthand a community that I was afraid of welcome me into it and say, we care about our health, come talk to us about our health, community health. And a community that did things for itself that I never had seen a community do for itself before. Organize, fundraise, educate, in an incredibly community-specific way, and particularly the breadth of the response, whether it's fundraising in bars or dealing with street fairs or helping out nonprofits with their fundraising. The leather community responded fast, really, really fast, and really, really quite decisively. We had a community that came up before we had public health, before we had the volunteer wave that we had, before we had regular San Francisco get involved in the epidemic. We had the leather community. And I think we had, in a way, a pioneer, a community that's always seen itself on the outside but learned to take care of itself, translate those lessons around community entanglement and community empowerment and translate that to the meta community, because the leather community helped take care of all the community. And I think that piece around how one group then sets a path for the whole community is an invaluable lesson for us in San Francisco. And I think without the leather community, I think we'd be a much poorer response. I think we would not have as an aggressive response, and I don't think we would have as good a community response as we do right now. AIDS has taught me to never give up, never take no for an answer, never stop fighting, never believe that I can't make a change, and never believe that it has to end the way that people think it's going to end. That's what AIDS has taught me. AIDS has taught me that in the face of insurmountable odds, keep fighting. In the face of insurmountable challenges, keep fighting. In the face of losing my friends, that I have an obligation to honor them, stay alive the best I can, and continue to fight so that no one else has to experience what I experienced. One day this epidemic is going to be over, and people are going to ask, what did you do? And I want my nephews and nieces and grandkids and great-grandchildren that I know people, I personally know people that did something, that did the extraordinary by doing the ordinary, They did the extraordinary by feeding somebody or driving someone to the hospital or planting a memorial or planting a tree or donating to the AIDS Foundation or having a house party. But I know people that need to be remembered because what they did in the face of absolute chaos was create order. In terms of absolute and utter despair, create hope. And in terms of stigma and discrimination, created a sense of grace and elegance and dignity for an entire group of people, primarily friends of mine, friends, neighbors, lovers of mine, to either help them die with dignity, live with grace, or survive. That's what I want my nephews and nieces to know. That's what I want the future generations to know, that in the midst of not knowing what to do something. In the midst of not knowing how well to do it, just do it regardless. And to keep doing it no matter how tired you get, because someone has to keep doing it, because someone relies on them. My hope for the future around the epidemic is that people come to understand that it didn't define us as a community, but we definitely defined ourselves as a community because of it. I imagine a world without AIDS. I imagine a life without AIDS. I imagine that I'm going to see the end of AIDS. I actually believe that at 52 years old, I've been infected for more than half my life. I actually believe I will see the end of the epidemic. And I want to make sure that people remember that for a long period of time, hope was a luxury that none of us had. And that the only luxury that we had was our energy to respond. And that at some point we turned a corner, and that at some point it required that we re-engage the epidemic in a way with a sort of passion and dedication heretofore unknown. I mean, to be able to see the end of the tunnel and know that we have to keep going, that because there might be a cure down the pike, we have to keep going. There are people that need care, no matter what, people that need housing, no matter what, people that need drug treatment, no matter what. And they're part of my community as a gay man, part of my community as an AIDS-infected individual.